once the disciples were sent out, the acts of the disciples, with the ability to act of the Holy Spirit through the disciples. And then we're going to be looking at the book of Revelation. But in order to do that, we're going to have to examine a lot of Old Testament prophecy, because the book of Revelation is kind of a completion of the prophecy that was begun in the Old Testament, John seeing the fulfillment of it. So we kind of need to look at the first part so we'll know what he's talking about. We make a lot of mistakes when we look at the book of Revelation apart from the Old Testament. We make things up that are not actually correct. But if we understand what they were thinking, then we know what they meant by what they said. That's just true in any walk of life. Whenever you talk to somebody, you have to know what that person is referring to in order to understand what they're talking about. So we're about to start that, but we're almost done here with the book of Acts. Paul is on his way to Rome, and he's been shipwrecked on the island of Malta, which is in between the coast of Africa and Italy. On that island, there are barbarians. That's what he called them. And that's what they called anybody who did not speak Hebrew or speak Greek. They were just known as barbarians. That means that the people who go bar, that was kind of a derogatory term, because that's what their languages sounded like to them. It sounded like they were just saying bar. So they called them barbarians. And even though Paul had said, God is sending to minister to the barbarians, he had never gone. So God made sure his boat ended up on one of those places, because Paul had it in his mind where God was sending him. God's going to send me to Greece, he's going to send me to Rome, because those are the important people that I need to reach. Paul didn't know that he needed to reach these other people. And in our lives, that's how God does us. We always have it made up in our minds where we're going, what we think we're going to do, and then God shipwrecks us somewhere else. When we didn't, oh man, I never knew I would end up over here. I never knew I would run into that person. He puts us in a situation that we weren't expecting, and then he brings a blessing from it if we're listening. Once Paul got there to the island of Malta, he went, oh, I see why God had me land here. And so he was able to minister to them. But it started with that snake fastening himself to Paul's hand. That got everybody's attention. And when he just shook it off into the fire, that's when they went, oh, this man is used of God, because God's put it protecting him. So sometimes a snake will attack us, but when God protects us, then people go, oh, I see you were in that situation, but look how God brought you through. The situation doesn't come because we've done something wrong. Paul hadn't done anything wrong. The situation comes because God wants to deliver us from it so we can be a witness to other people. Does that make sense? Yes. There are situations we get into, it's our fault.
Oh, yeah.
We messed up. We didn't listen. We should have listened. God warned us. And then he'll still deliver us from that situation. We have to be careful not to say, oh, well, maybe I was supposed to do that. Maybe I was supposed to get drunk and drive my car into that tree. Because look, the nurse got saved. No, God could have saved that nurse another way. So sometimes we got to be careful that we don't justify everything just because God thinks we're good. But some situations, we didn't do anything wrong. God simply brings us into that situation to give us a testimony, because he's going to do something from it. So Paul went to the island of Malta, people got saved, and now they're back on the boat, and they're on their way to Rome. And that's where we're starting off. So let's look at Acts chapter 28. We're going to read verse 11 through the first part of verse 13.
After 3 months, we sailed in an Alexandrian ship whose figurehead was my brother, which had wintered at the island. And landing at Syracuse, we stayed 3 days. From there we circled around and
Regium, exactly. So they sailed at another Alexandrian ship, which also was in Malta. Now there was a lot of traffic between Alexandria and Rome. Paul and them got on an Alexandrian ship. When they felt that their ship was going too slow, they got off their ship and they got on an Alexandrian ship, and that's the one that got shipwrecked. Because he doesn't want us to get on the ship, he hasn't told us to get on. So, but there was also another Alexandrian ship there, because you went from Alexandria, which is in Egypt, to Rome a lot. From Alexandria to Rome, and I want you to remember that. Alexandria to Rome is a very common route. So there was another Alexandrian ship waiting there, and on it was the figureheads to Pollux and Castor. Those are the twins, the Gemini. If you know anything about astrology, Gemini are the twins, and so they had those figureheads on their ship. God allowed Paul to get on this Alexandrian ship, even though it had this figurehead of these people that they were worshiping, Castor and Pollux, because God's not intimidated by other religions. We would have said, Paul, you can't get on that ship. They've got Castor and Pollux on it, and that's pagan. That's us. So we're scared of other religions. We're scared of them. You can't go in there. They got a Buddha on the. Well, God sent you. You can go. If God tells you don't go, then don't go. But you can't make up reasons why not to go. God may be sending you someplace. That's the very place God may want you to go. If you only hang around other Christians, how does that help the kingdom of God? So God may send you someplace like that. We're scared of it, but God's not scared of it. But likewise, there could be a church with a cross on it, and God may say, don't go in there. But just because something has a cross on it doesn't mean you're supposed to go. And just because it has something pagan on it doesn't mean you have to stay away. In every case, you have to listen to the Spirit of God. I know people like to make up rules.
Yeah.
Well, you can never do this. But that's our way of subverting God. I don't have to pray today and ask God. I've already read the rule book. But God doesn't want us to make up rules about what we can and cannot do. He wants us to ask Him every day, should I go there? Is it okay? Should I go there? Is it okay? So Paul had no problem getting on this ship that had these two idols on it, to Castor and Pollux. He had no problem getting on it. He knew they weren't real. And it says they sailed and landed at Syracuse. Syracuse is in Sicily. Sicily is an island near Italy. So then it says they were there for 3 days, and from there they circled around. Now this word circled around means they wandered around. They were just kind of circling around. And they ended up at Regium. So there's 2 times when people wander around in the Old Testament. Either because they got on out of their own way and they're lost, or God actually is purposely having you wander around because He doesn't want you to know the plan. You will mess it up. He wants you to end up where you're supposed to be. But if you know the plan, you will go there too soon. So God will have you wander around until you end up at the right spot. I'm positive you've had that happen where you just ended up, you've just been driving, oh look over there, and you just ended up someplace, and it turned out to be, oh my goodness, we were just wandering around and we ran into this shop and found the perfect thing we've been looking for, right? You didn't have a plan, but God had the plan. You out of these already?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You just giving them out to anybody. So let's look at these 2 times when people, it's the same phrase that says when we circled around. That really means we're just wandering around. We didn't know where we were going. Our boat got lost. And we ended up in Rachel. Okay, in 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 19, and then we'll go to verse 23. David is about to attack the Philistines.
So David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hand? And the Lord said to David, Go, for if thou wilt deliver the Philistines into your hand.
So the Philistines are right in front of him, and he says, should I attack them? And he says, yes, go, straight, go up. They're right north of you, go up, literally up, and attack them. They attacked them, they won. 4 verses later, not 4 years later, just 4 verses later, David asked again. So let's read verse 22.
Then the Philistines went up once again and deployed themselves in the valley of Griffin. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, and he said, You shall not go up, circle around behind them, and come up upon them in front of the mulberry trees.
So David asked the Lord again, should we go up? And this time the Lord said, no, don't go up. Now, we would not have asked the Lord, because once God shows us how to do it one way, we do it that way every time. And then we turn it into an annual day. We do. If God leads you one way and it's successful, you know, the praise singers, we sang 2 fast songs, and the church really set on fire. Next Sunday, we're going to sing 2 fast songs again. We're not even going to ask God. Because it worked. So that must be the plan from now on. It wouldn't have hurt us to do a slow song. I'm just using this as an example. You know, it wouldn't have, or have no song. Like, no, that worked. That was so good. Let's do that exactly like that again. Or, well, we had 5 ushers and we were able to cover the whole thing, so we always have to have 5. Or the offering came at this time. Or the prayer, remember we started off with the prayer. And then the church, God moved. So we have to start off with the prayer again. We type it into the program and pass it out. And this is how God must do it every Sunday. We make it a program. This is the order it must happen. We determine the order of service. And it must happen this way. We're that way. We don't ask God. If something has been successful, we don't ask, should you want us to do it that way again? We've already got the answer. We already know.
AJ roasted you last Sunday. Did he tell you anything?
Yeah, we have to ask God.
I got married now. What I'm supposed to do.
Exactly. If we don't listen, we will mess up. So, David, because it didn't make sense, they went up and attacked and they won. But David asked the second time, and the second time God said, no, don't go up.
He said,
Do it totally different. I'm going to give you a whole different way to do it this time. He said, I want you just to wander around or circle around the seas. No, that's very important.
He's right.
Whatever you're doing.
Stop it.
Okay, so just wander around. That means circle around. Just wander around. And you'll end up in front of some mulberry trees, and then just wait there. So instead of having direct plan of attack, God gave them the opposite plan. Just go just wander around, you'll end up in some mulberry trees, and then said that when you use down the mulberry trees, I'm going to actually do it. You won't have to do anything. He scared the Philistines, if you remember, he scared the Philistines, and they went panic, and they thought they heard the sound of a big army, and they went crazy. And God said, I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to do it totally different than the last time, which was just a couple days ago. So, sometimes God has you wander around because He doesn't want us to know the plan of attack. We'll mess it up. So, you can pray, Lord, please show us, and He's not going to show you. But again, like I said, you've had that in your life where you were just driving around and then it's also, you just happened on something. And it turned, oh my God, we were just driving and I ran into someone. That was not a plan that you had. But God still blessed from it. So sometimes He wants us to know exactly, and sometimes He doesn't want us to know. Because He wants to do it, and He knows if we know we'll do it too soon, we'll do it our way, or we'll leave this person out, or, you know. So He says, no, just wander around. You're going to end up someplace, and then I'm going to show you. That's okay. Here's another time when people were wandering around in the Old Testament. 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 9, and 11, and then 15. Someone else read.
So the king of Israel went to the king of Judah and the king of Edom, and they marched on that roundabout route 7 days.
That means they were just circling around for 7 days. They didn't know what they were doing for 7 days.
And there was no water for the army nor for the animals that followed them.
So they had decided they were going to attack the Moabites. They had decided. They made up their mind, but they were wandering around, didn't know what they were doing because they had decided. Finally, somebody said, oh, I'm sorry, verse 11.
But Jehoshaphat said, "Is there no prophet of the Lord here, that we may inquire of the Lord by him?" So one of the servants of the king of Israel answered and said, "Elisha, the son of Shaphat, is here, who poured water on the hands of Elijah."
So Elisha said, finally somebody said, maybe we should ask the Lord what we're doing. Jesus, help us do that at a business meeting. Help us just to stop in the middle of a business meeting and say, well, let's ask the Lord. We're starting to kind of argue a little bit. And we're starting to fight. Let's stop and get direction from the Lord. That would be, the church would be so successful if they included Jesus in any of their plans. We won't do it though because we have to make our point. I've got to make my point to tell you how you're wrong. So we're not going to do it because my point, you hearing my point is much more important than me hearing from the Lord. So that's our ego, and that's why we are where we are. That's why God is doing to us what he's doing. But he's going to win in the end, as he do. Now, so Elisha, after complaining and saying, the only reason I'm going to do this and inquire the Lord is because I respect Jehoshaphat. The rest of you, I don't respect you at all. But I'm going to do it. So he says, verse 15.
And now bring me a musician. That happened. The musician played, and the hand of the Lord came upon him.
This is very important. I just included this scripture. When the musician played, he said, bring the musician. Because that is one of the ways that God gets us in the mood to hear from him. Bring the musician. And when the musician played, then the hand of the Lord came upon him. We've seen it often in our services. Some song will start and then the Spirit of God just comes in. We can't program that, but we need to respect it and understand there's certain types of worshipful songs that when they are sung, that's when it gets us in a worshipful mood to hear from God. To hear from God. Music is not just there to get us amped up and get us excited. So there is praise. When you're praising and you're making your flesh praise the Lord. I will bless the Lord at all times. I'm going to just make my flesh get up and praise God. And it's okay to get excited. But there's another type of worshipful music. There's praise and there's worship. And there's worshipful music that's not about getting us hyped up. It's actually about getting us calmed down so that we can receive and we can hear from God. So that's a principle in the Bible. Elisha knew that. Let's bring the musician. Play a song because I know if we just worship God, then I'll be able to receive and hear from God. You need to take advantage of worship more often. Worship more often. So here's two different things that were going on. God told David to wander around, circle around. And in the other case, they had made up their minds. They were just wandering around, and then they finally asked God to show them the way. So there's two times when we're wandering around. Either because God wants us to wander around. He doesn't want us to get too involved so we take too much credit. So he actually makes us wander around, and we end up where we're supposed to be. But we asked him first for direction, and that actually is the way he directs us. Because if you know, you have an opinion about it. So you just end up somewhere because you've already asked God. But there's other times we're wandering around when we haven't asked God. And that's why we're going around in circles. Because he's trying to wear us out so we finally will ask him direction. In this case, Paul is circling around. And they end up at Rhegium. Let's see what happens. In Acts chapter 28, verse 13b.
And after one day the south wind blew, and the next day we came to Seola, and where we found brethren.
So we found brethren there. We actually found Christians there. So how did Christians get to Rome? How are they? I mean, they're not in Rome yet. They're in Italy. The boats landed. They wandered around. They didn't know they were going to run into these brothers. Right? Remember they were just circling around, they got up rigid, and then the south wind blew, and we ended up here, and we, oh my goodness, there are other Christians here. Possibly. Possibly. Barnabas is in Greece, but Paul's running into other Christians in a part of Italy that he had no idea. He said, when that word found means we discovered, like we had no idea that they were there. Paul's trying to get there to witness to them, and there are already Christians there. Probably on the day of Pentecost. Remember, there were people from all over, and God spoke, the Holy Spirit spoke, they spoke in tongues, and a bunch of people got saved, and then they all went back. Paul's thinking, I'm the only minister. If I don't get there, God can't do nothing. Turned out, God's smarter than him. God's smarter than us. If we don't have so-and-so pray, God won't move. If this person doesn't sing, God's not going to move. God can use anybody. God can surprise you. Because God's been around longer than us. Okay, so they found brethren there. Let's look at more specific what might have happened. Acts chapter 18, verse 1 through 2.
After these things, Paul departed from Athens and went to Corinth. He found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had commanded all the Jews to depart from Rome, and he came to them.
Okay, so we ran into Aquila and Priscilla. They've been in Italy, and now Paul's running them in Corinth, in Greece, because Claudius, the emperor, had commanded all the Jews to get out of Rome. Do you remember why? What happened in Rome? We studied the book of Romans. Excellent. I'm such a good teacher. You don't remember what you said. That's okay, there's so much information. So people had gone, probably from the day of Pentecost, had gone back to Italy, they had simply gone to Rome, and people had started to get saved. So you had the Jews who were saved and the Jews who were not saved. They're fighting, right? I know you've never heard of a church fight. Yeah, because then Christians wouldn't fight. But so the Jews who were not saved are fighting with the Jews who are saved, because they're saying we don't have to circumcise anymore. We don't have to bring meat to the temple and sacrifice it anymore. These old traditions, we don't have to do them anymore. Well, that will cause a fight. Please try to take away somebody's traditions. They'll cut you in the church in Jesus' name. So we don't have to do those old traditions anymore. And so the Jews are literally fighting. They had to call in the police and bring them out. And finally, they kick all Jews, you get out of Rome. So that's why Priscilla and Aquila were in Corinth. Because Claudius had to kick all Jews out. Because they didn't know who was right and who was wrong. They just knew every time the Jews got together, the old guard would fight the new guard. And so they kicked them all out. So there are no Jews left in Rome. But some Gentiles have gotten saved. Some Gentiles have gotten saved. So Priscilla and Aquila told Paul about, there's some Gentiles who are saved in Rome. And Paul said, ooh, I want to get to them and minister to them because they're all by themselves now. They don't know what they're doing. They got saved, but there's no one to teach them the Bible. Right. So Paul wrote them a long letter. That's why the book of Romans is so long. Because he's like, I got to give them all this instruction because there's no one there. And, you know, a friend of mine had a bathroom ministry. If you went to the bathroom and you're a girl, she would she'd witness to you while you were on the toilet. And you couldn't get up until you finished. And she had you trapped in the toilet. And she would let you up until you accepted Christ. And then she would leave. She didn't disciple them. She just felt it was her job to get people saved. And we would ask, well, what about all these people you keep getting saved in the bathroom just so that they can finish pooping and leave them alone. Do you ever go back and minister them or get them into a church? Or they just, no. And so we're trying to run down, did you get saved in the bathroom? Did you get saved in the toilet? We're trying to find them so that we can disciple them. Because they just saying a prayer on the toilet, what's the next step, right? What's going to be the next step in my life, in your life? And so I found 2 of them. I don't know the rest. Got them to a church. But that's Paul's concern. These people are now saved in Rome, but anybody who knows the Bible at all is gone. So that's why Paul's trying to get there. He's trying to get there. But he knows that people are saved in Rome. He didn't know anybody was saved anywhere else. That's like finding out that some people have gotten saved in Los Angeles. That doesn't mean anybody saved in Bakersfield. That doesn't mean anybody saved in San Francisco. Rome people were saved. And so Paul's trying to get to Rome. He was shocked to find out there were other brothers in other parts of Italy. He had no idea that it had spread. But he found out about the church in Rome from Priscilla and Aquila. Now, let's go on and see what Priscilla and Aquila did. Acts 18, chapter 20, verse 24 through 26.
Now a certain Jew named Apollos, born in Alexandria, eloquent in writing the scriptures, came to
Ephesus. Right, so Apollos was born in Alexandria. Now, what happens? There are a lot of boats that go from Alexandria to where? To Rome, and back and forth, back and forth. They go from, so Alexandria to Rome, right? Paul got on a boat that went from Alexandria to Rome and was shipwrecked. Then he got another boat that went from Alexandria to Rome, because that was just a common route from Alexandria to Rome, right? And so Apollos was from Alexandria. He's from Alexandria and very learned. And now he runs into Priscilla and Aquila. Okay.
This man had been instructed in the way of the Lord and been fervent in spirit. He spoke and taught accurately the things of the Lord. For he knew only the baptism of John.
So he taught accurately the things of the Lord, but he only knew about the baptism of John. So he made sure you got baptized and repented. So he was a Baptist. He made sure that you repented of your sins and that you got baptized. He didn't know that Jesus had come to do more. Because we get a lot of people saved and we make sure they repent of their sins, and then we teach them to now wait until you go to heaven and then your life will be better. We don't teach them there's more that you can have here on the earth, that God wants you to do and be successful here on the earth, bless other people on the earth, minister on the earth. We don't teach them baptism of the Holy Spirit. We don't teach more, but we do make sure everybody gets saved, and that's important. And that's all Apollos knew. Baptism of John, repent, repent, repent. So he was very good at getting people to repent. But that's all he knew. Go ahead.
So he began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Aquila and Priscilla heard them, they took him aside and explained to him the way of God more accurately.
Right, so they gave him more. Now Priscilla and Aquila were from where? They're from Rome. They were from Rome. Paul met them. They told Paul about what was going on in Rome. Then they run into Apollos. And Apollos, we think, went to Rome and began to minister. We think that Apollos is actually the one who wrote the book of Hebrews. Because the book of Hebrews is written in an Alexandrian style. Does that make sense? And that's what it says in here. Right. And that's why we think that Apollos wrote it, because it's written somebody. It's like singing a song in a jazz style, or singing it in a country style, or singing it in an operatic style. You can kind of tell where somebody's from. You hear them singing. Oh, you must be from down south, because I can tell how you're singing that song. Oh, you must be from Europe, because you're singing, you know. Does that make sense? You can kind of so when they read the book of Hebrews, this is written how you would write it if you were from Alexandria. So they think it was Apollos, who obviously was a very great teacher and got more instruction. And they think that Apollos wrote the book of Hebrews. And in the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 24, whoever wrote it says, someone.
Read all those who rule over you and all the saints, those from Italy greet you.
Those from Italy greet you. So the writer of Hebrews was in Italy. at the time and saying, hey, everybody here in Italy, they greet you. So it is possible that Apollos was the one going around getting people saved, because Priscilla and Aquila, they don't know what Apollos did once they taught him. He left to go somewhere, but he was a great teacher. The Bible takes time to let you know he was a great teacher. He was a synagogue. He was great at it. But we think he went to Rome, that he went to Italy. Not to Rome, but he went to Italy. That's like going to California as opposed to going to Los Angeles. Just because you say, people say, oh, I'm from California, that doesn't mean you're from Los Angeles. So when he says people from Italy greet you, that doesn't mean he was in Rome, right? So Paul's shocked when he runs into these people who are not in Rome, but they're saved. But the boat just accidentally got there. The boat was circling around. The wind just blew them, and Paul, that was not his intention to run into these people. But God knew they were there. So God knows the people who have a need, and he may blow you into into an apartment store. He may blow you over, to Church's Chicken. Let's just stop there, okay? And then you start talking to somebody, start witnessing to them. Or they say, oh, I heard about a job opening, blah, 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 So doesn't have to always be you witnessing them. Maybe they got something for you. My nephew Antonio got off the bus and was just walking, and a guy came up to him and said, hey, are you looking for a job? Now, he had to look for a job. But the guy just, well, listen, there's a job opening down here. And if he had just gotten off the bus and started walking, he never would have run into this guy. And so you never know what God is going to do, but he will cause you to wander and you end up in the right place. So Paul runs into these brothers. In Acts chapter 28, verse 14, the second half of verse 14, here's what happened after he ran into those brothers. We're in Acts chapter 28, verse 14. And we were invited to stay with him 7 days. What is the significance of 7 days? Because several times Paul went someplace and stayed for 7 days.
7 days of your rest.
Yes, it is. But why did they, there's also another reason why they all wanted to stay 7 days. Let's look at Acts chapter, oh yes sir.
I was going to say because they wanted to experience the Sabbath.
Yes, they wanted to experience the Sabbath with him. They wanted to break bread. So they're saying, stay from Sunday to Sunday so that we can break bread with you. But breaking bread with one another was important to them. So we'll see an example of that in Acts chapter 20, verse 6 through 7.
We celebrate the Philippi after the days of unleavened bread, and in 5 days joined in the Troas, where we stayed 7 days. Now on the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul, ready to depart the next day, spoke to them and continued his message until midnight.
So they asked him to stay 7 days because they wanted to break bread with him. So please stay until the Sabbath so that we can break bread with you. So on the 7th day, it says that Paul was ready to depart, but he spoke to him and continued his message until midnight. Do you remember what happened? So we would not be happy if somebody started preaching around 3 and preached for 9 hours. We wouldn't be happy. Doesn't mean it wasn't of God. So our flesh would get tired, and maybe with God. But our minds would be firing darts at the person. Why won't you shut up? So when Paul preached until midnight, do you remember who was in the window? Now their windows were like doors. So remember, what's his name is in the window? Eutychus? But you remember the guy who's in the window? And he fell down, and he fell asleep. Then Paul had to go. Paul prayed for him, and then he went back to preaching. Let me tell you real quick, so I can finish point number 3. Okay, so Paul runs into these brothers. They ask him to stay 7 days. Now, let's think about that. Who else is Paul with? No. He granted the Priscilla and Aquila earlier. I just referenced that earlier. He's now on his way to Rome. When he was in Corinth, he ran into Aquila and Priscilla and they told him about Rome. But now Paul's on the ship, on his way to Rome. Who else is there on the ship? Who else was on the ship? The soldiers were on the ship. Who else? Are you answering the question from the kitchen?
Yeah, Luke was on the ship.
She said Luke. I thought she was saying, ooh. Yeah, she's excited. Ooh. She's saying Luke. Luke, right, because Luke is the one writing all this down, right? So Luke is with Paul. But there's the other prisoners with Paul, the Roman soldiers with Paul. There's 275 people. They have to do whatever Paul does. Paul's not by himself. So when they say, can you stay 7 days, Paul? All 275 people have to agree to it. Now, so why are they listening to Paul? What had happened on the ship? He warned them about the storm. It turned out to be right. He was the one that said, we shouldn't go forward, there's going to be a storm. But they didn't listen to him. Well, you're not a sea captain. You don't know anything. That doesn't mean God doesn't speak. So the little old lady that we ignore, or the child that we ignore, God may be speaking through them, right? But we think, well, that child doesn't know anything. Like my friends who dropped somebody off at the airport, the little kid was asleep in the back seat. And then as they were driving off, the child woke up and said, where's Uncle so-and-so? Oh, he's on that plane. Well, doesn't he know that plane's going to crash? Which he did. But they didn't, oh, well, this kid, he's just a child. What would he know about planes? He must have just had a bad dream.
Wow.
So there's people that we ignore because we think they don't know what they're talking about. That may be who God, because God likes to speak through a mule. He likes to speak through other things to see if you're listening. Because if you decide only this person can speak to me, God will definitely speak to somebody else. Because now you're limited to God. You said, God, only this preacher, I will trust him. So God for sure is going to try to speak to somebody else because you're telling God who he can speak to you through. God doesn't like that. So we do that all the time. We limit God to, here's how I will hear you. So for sure God's going to use somebody else because he wants us to open all the time. He wants us to understand it's him speaking to the person. It's not that person that's incredible. It's God using that person, and God can use anything. You had your hand up, sir. You have to talk louder, though. So, what are you saying that you...
So, like, basically, when I was speaking to them, they turned on the...
Oh, right, exactly. Right. And see, they didn't think this little boy, knew what he was talking about. So we have to be careful to make sure that we're listening, So, Paul, in Acts chapter 21, verse 4, after he found these disciples, go ahead.
We stayed there 7 days. They told Paul through the Spirit not to go to Jerusalem.
Right. Now, don't forget that here's another example of them staying Paul staying 7 days someplace. When he found certain disciples in Galatia, we said we stayed there 7 days. They told Paul through the Spirit not to go to Jerusalem. This is back in chapter 21. There's another time that Paul stayed somewhere 7 days. Now, God gave them a bad feeling. But that didn't mean he wasn't supposed to go. The only way that he got to Rome was to go to Jerusalem. And God definitely wanted Paul to go to Rome because of Paul's influences in Rome, the Roman Empire eventually became Christian, and Christianity spread throughout the world because the Romans were just about to conquer the world. And they spread their Christianity throughout the world. So God wanted Paul to go to Jerusalem, so he'd get in that boat and go to Rome. But they knew something bad was going to happen in Jerusalem, so they interpreted that as, Paul, you shouldn't go. That means sometimes we hear from God, but we interpret it wrong. We'll see somebody, this person has a gift. You should be a deacon. That's not what that means necessarily. Or you should preach. Yeah, maybe 10 years from now. You're probably right. It doesn't mean it's supposed to happen now. But the problem is, I'm looking for a preacher right now. And God just told me that you're the preacher, so I'm going to make you preach right now. So I'm adding my agenda to what God is saying. Not on purpose, but a lot of times we have our own thing that we're thinking should happen, and then when we see someone, okay, well God, that must be the answer to what I'm looking for. And we did actually hear from God, that person does have something, but it's not now necessarily, or it's not the way that you think it should be. So they were hearing from God that something bad was going to happen to Paul in Jerusalem, and it did. He was arrested, put in chains, and shipwrecked, but that didn't mean he wasn't supposed to go. So we have to be careful. Paul tells, in Romans it tells the prophets to prophesy according to the proportion of faith. That means prophesy what you know. Just say what God told you. Just say, God gave me a good feeling about you. Just say that much. Don't then say, so that means you're called. Because that's not what you don't know that's what it means. God didn't necessarily tell you that. It's hard for us to do that because we want to say more. It feels like we're not saying enough if we just said something just standing out about you. I don't know what it is, but when I see you, I just feel like I'm just drawn to you. If we would just say that, that's enough. But we then say, so that must mean you're supposed to, and we add to it, right? So if they had just said to Paul, we have a bad feeling about you going to Jerusalem, Paul would have said, yeah, God's already told me that chains and stripes await. In fact, he said that a couple times. But they said, no, don't go. This means you're not supposed to go. And that's when we mess up. We add our own thing to it. So the reason they listened to Paul is because he had said, I have a bad feeling about this ship. We need to just, he didn't know about the storm, he didn't know anything else. He just said, I don't think we're supposed to go anywhere. We need to just put the anchor down. Turned out he was right. They didn't listen to Paul because he wasn't an expert. We have to be careful when we decide who's an expert and who's not. Because you never know who God sees. Also, they listened to Paul because he got the snake fastened to his hand. And the snake didn't kill him. And then they saw Paul heal people and raise somebody from the dead and vault them. So when Paul says, I think we should stay here for 7 days, 275 people said, okay. We'd be stupid at this point not to listen to you.
That's right.
So they stayed for 7 days. This is Acts chapter 28, verse 14. See, so here's the last part of verse 14. So after they stayed there for 7 days, then they walked towards Rome. So now they're walking. They're not on the ship anymore because the ship is just wandering around. We can walk from this part. So then now they're walking toward Rome. Let's look at Paul's journey to Rome. Romans chapter 15, verse 22 to 25.
For this reason, I also have been much hindered from coming to you.
Do you remember what the reason? Well, why would you remember? Like you memorized the book of Romans. He says, but this reason I've been hindered to you, from coming to you, because everywhere God keeps sending him to other places. He wanted to go to Rome. As soon as he heard from Priscilla and Aquila about people in Rome getting saved, he wanted to go there. But God kept sending him other places. Why? Why did God let him go directly to Rome? It wasn't time. We got to get God's timing. If we can learn, I'm just going to say this for the 100th time, it has to be God's will, not our will. It has to be done in God's way. So you can know God's will, but you're still doing it your way instead of his way. So he'll break up your ship to make sure you do it his way. And then it's got to be done in his timing. So it can be God's will, but it's not time yet for that person to lead the choir. But you're right. One day they're going to, but now's not the time. Or I'm sorry? Right. It could be years later. God loves to do stuff years later. Doesn't mean you were wrong, but we mess people up by rushing them into a situation that they weren't ready for. Why'd that deacon mess up? Why did that pass? Because it wasn't time for them to be a deacon yet. They just got saved 2 months ago. Just because they were a man and alive doesn't mean you have to make them a deacon. You know what I'm saying? Any man that walks into a church, ooh, you got to be a deacon. He stays, he's been here for 4 weeks in a row. Let's make him a deacon. Really? That person is now ready to be a spiritual guide for other people. Because the deacons that we have, they've been doing it for 50 years. They know what the heck they're doing, you know. And so if somebody's ill, if somebody's in trouble, so they're able to guide other people. This person's only been saved for 3 months. They need guidance themselves. How are they going to be able to help somebody up just because they're alive and a man? And you know, anyway. So we rush people. We rush ourselves. That house, I claim that house, that car. And then when we buy that car, we wonder why God's not paying the bills for it. God's like, I didn't get that car, you rush that. I was going to get you a car, but like 3 years from now when I get you that job you're about to have, 3 years from now. So you have to pay for this car on your own. And we struggle the whole time. So there's a thing called God's timing. Paul says, I was hindered in coming to you because God kept, and Paul really wanted to get there. He says several times, I got to get to Rome, I got to get to Rome. Okay, so I was hindered from coming to you. Verse 23. I think you're reading just on it.
But now, no longer having a place in these parts, and having a great desire these many years to come to you, whenever I journey to Spain, I shall come to you.
So he had it down. When I go to Spain, that's when I'll come to you. Paul knew. I already know how God's going to work it out. Having me said that, I know how God's going to work this out. So Paul said, when I go to Spain, that's when I'm going to come to you. That is not at all God's plan. But that's not how it worked out at all. Paul didn't know when I go to Jerusalem and get arrested, that's when I'm finally going to get to Rome. So there's a lot of, but again, it doesn't mean he wasn't supposed to go to Rome. It just means he had worked out the way, and we do that. We work it out. We know, here's how God's going to bless me. I know how God's going to fix that situation. Yes, sir. No. So he thought God was going to spend, because he knows all the hot spots. People are getting saved in Rome, they're getting saved in Spain, they're getting saved in Greece. It would make sense, if I were God, I would send me those places. So Paul wasn't doing anything evil. He just thought he knew how it should happen. So we do that. It would, Lord, you know, you gave me that job in Beverly Hills, so it seems like you would give me a car. So I'm going to go ahead and get that car. No, God wants you on the bus for the next 2 years because there's 40 people that you're going to get saved from your bus ministry. Does that make sense? But we think, well, Lord, it would make sense, so I'm going to do it this way. And then we're struggling the whole time and have to sell the car later. Well, I don't understand why God, because God never told me. That was your plan. That was, you know, that was our plan. So we always have a plan. Paul had a plan. When I go to Spain, that's when I'm going to come to Rome. It all makes sense. Spain and Italy are right next to each other. So I know that's how God's going to do it. He didn't even say maybe. He didn't even say if God wills. He says, when I go to Spain, that's when I'm going to come to Rome. So it's all set, so don't even worry about it. And God had nothing like that plan. Let's go on. For I hope, go ahead.
For I hope to see you on my journey, be helped on my way there by you. If first I may enjoy your company for a while.
So I hope, in fact, that you send me money so I can get there. Because you're a church now, and I'm a minister, and that, you know, part of your offering goes to helping my travel so I can come and minister to you. So here's how God's going to do it. When I'm on my way to Spain, the church in Spain will send me some money, you'll send me. None of that happened. It was the exact opposite. He never would have thought that when I get arrested and they're about to beat me, then I'll get thrown in jail, then I'm going to ship, then it'll be shipped. If God had told him that plan, he would say, get behind me, Satan. If God told us the real way he was going to do it, we would never do it. We'd say, no, that's the devil. We rebuke it so often.
Fast and pray on it.
Exactly. We could go to the book of 1st and 2nd Corinthians and just say, no. I read here in the book of Hesitations where it says, thou shalt not. So God can't tell us how he's going to do it. In fact, if you remember, Paul when in Jerusalem, when they kept trying to arrest him and take him to the barracks, remember they kept trying to arrest him? Paul kept saying, no, I'm supposed to minister. And he would preach and start a riot, and then they'd have to come and rescue him, and they're about to take him to the barracks. 3 times they tried to take him to the barracks. But Paul kept saying, no, I'm in Jerusalem so I can minister to people. Finally, when they took him to the barracks, the angel of the Lord was there, who had been waiting there for a month, just waiting. Finally, Paul, and then the angel of the Lord said to him, hey, Paul, you're supposed to go to Rome. That's why you're here in jail. And Paul, oh. And he could have found that out sooner. But he was actually fighting against God. Because they tried to get him to the barracks. So, for a lot of us, there's something that we're fighting. No, that couldn't be Lord. That couldn't be God. That couldn't be God. But he's going to make us, we have to just give in at a certain point. And that's when God's going to give us step 2. We think we know what step 2 is. So we're writing letters to people and trying to get this done. And God has a whole other way he's going to solve it. The way we want to solve it makes sense. I mean, again, I'm not saying we're being evil. The way we want to solve it makes sense. It's just that it's not God's way. He says, my ways are higher than your ways. That means I have a whole other way you haven't even thought about, because I know people you don't know. Paul didn't know that the barbarians, that those Africans were on Malta, and that he was going to start a revival and people in North Africa would start to get saved. He didn't know that. That wasn't in his mind. Paul didn't know he was going to... All these people that Paul's running into and all these things that God, he did not know. And so there are things that eye has not seen nor ear heard, the things that God has, planned for us. But as we move in his will, he will reveal them to us. It doesn't mean we can never know. It means we have to give in, do what God told us to do, go apologize to that person, go ahead and sing with that group we don't want to sing with, go ahead and pray with that person we don't pray with, go ahead, whatever that thing is, just go ahead and give in and do it finally. Go back to that neighbor and say, whatever it is. And then God will have the angel be there and say, oh, here's step 2. So Paul had a whole other plan that he memorialized when he wrote to the Romans. God didn't do it that way at all. So I hope you helped in my journey. If you first my journey, if you're coming for a while, in verse 25 of Romans chapter 15 says,
But now I am going to Jerusalem to minister to the saints.
See, so that's what he thought. I'm going to Jerusalem to minister to the saints. I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to go to Rome. Well, yeah, that's true. But the part that wasn't true is you're not going to Jerusalem to minister to the saints. You're going to Jerusalem to get arrested, Paul.
And so you can get off with the pictures of Rome.
So exactly. He got there free. He just was with 274 other people. But, so, there are things that we think are going to happen. There's a way we think it's going to happen. But God has the timing for it. He has a way it's going to happen. It doesn't mean we're wrong that it is going to happen. Just how and when. That's what we're wrong about. And so we have to stay open to the Spirit and not get frustrated when things don't go our way. That's good they didn't go our way. Probably means they're going God's way. It's okay. If we understand God's in control, we just won't be so angry all the time or nervous all the time or stressed out. It's like, well, God got this. My car broke down. Okay. God's got another way for me to do it. Or maybe God doesn't want me to do that. Maybe He's want something different. But I know God's in control of my life, so I'm not going to get stressed out. He makes all things work together for good. Right? To them that love the Lord. To them that are called. He makes it work out according to His purpose. Ronnie just wrote about that the other day, and I'm sure everybody else did too. So, but you have to put your life in His hands. Okay, so back to Acts chapter 28, now in verse 15. So they're walking to Rome.
And from there, when the brethren heard about us, they came to meet us as far as Actium, Forum, and Rhein.
Those are 2 cities in Italy that are south of Rome. Now it says when they heard about us, how did they hear? Well, first of all, there's 275 people walking to Rome. When the first set of brethren at Petulio heard about Paul, they sent word, hey, Paul, that guy who wrote us those letters 5 years ago, he's on his way here. He's finally on his way here. This is fantastic. So when the other people heard that guy, Paul, who had written that incredible book of Romans to them, now they are running to meet him as 275 people are all walking toward Rome. Yes, sir.
that church in Rome that he goes to?
Yes. Yes. I'm just taking too much time to get to it.
No, because he was a prisoner, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he finally got to Rome, and that's when the church was. There wasn't like 5 different churches in Rome. There was just that one. That's in the day where there'd be one church that everybody felt they were part of. Now, I'm the church of 3rd Street, I'm the church of 4th Street, I'm the church of 6th Street. But there used to be just one church. Everybody felt they were always part of one church. So yeah, there's only one church in Rome.
Also, and God.
Right, so Paul, like, oh my goodness, so at every step, Paul is shocked. Because first of all, he thinks there's only people in Rome. But there are people saved in a city called Three Inns. There's people saved in a place called Apiforum. They were saved there too. Apollos, had gotten there before Paul and had been ministering in Italy. And that's where he wrote the book of Hebrews from. So there's all these people saved, but they still wanted to meet Paul. They didn't say, well, we already got Apollos. Thank you very much for doing it. They still wanted to meet Paul. So he's shocked. He's taking courage because he thinks that they're failing without him. Let's look at Romans chapter 1, verse 9.
For God is not witness to my servant, my spirit, the gospel of the Son, that without ceasing and ignorant to the true, always in my prayer.
So he says, I always pray for you, Rome. You are on my mind all the time. I'm so nervous because all the Jews got kicked out of Rome. There's just these Gentile Christians there. And without ceasing, I pray for you constantly. He said that in the first chapter of Romans, and then he writes 15 more chapters. Like, I got to tell them, there's a reason why Romans is the longest book in the New Testament. Because I got to tell you guys everything. There's no one there, and you're by yourself, and who knows what crazy thing you believe. You probably worship this goddess and worship that. I mean, he was so nervous for them. He says, without ceasing, I pray for you every single day. Because I'm so when he gets there, and there are all these brothers coming to greet him, he's like, he's shocked. He's thanking God. He falls on his knees. Oh my goodness. You mean God was able to help you without me? How's that possible? That God's able to do something without me. But we're not in control of the universe. About 30 years ago, I stepped down from control of the universe. You didn't know I was in charge. But I thought I was in charge, and I had to help everybody and say something to everybody. And if I don't talk to this person and say, how are they going to know? And I had a phone ministry, I don't. And God said, that's okay, I think let me try it for a minute. So I stepped down and said, okay, I'll just have to pray for people, and maybe God will change that person's heart. We don't think he'll do it. That's why we get up and argue with them in business meeting. If I don't yell this person down, they're not going to know. Because God can't reach them, it's me. I'm an instrument on earth. So, but God can't change somebody's heart or move them out of the way. So you don't have to say everything all the time to everybody. God can actually reach them. He really can. He's been doing it for like 40, 50 years now. So he's pretty good at it. So he says, for I serve God without ceasing. I mentioned you always in my prayer. Go to verse 10.
Making request if, by some means, never glass and find a way in the will of God to come to you.
Yes, so he said, Lord, I need to go to them. I need to cut. And God's like, I already got it taken care of, Paul. Don't even worry about it. I'm going to trick you into going to Jerusalem. You're going to end up in Rome. Don't even worry about it. Let's look at Romans chapter 16, verse 3 through 7.
Read Priscilla and Aquila, my fellow workers in Christ Jesus.
Why does it say Priscilla? Why does it say the woman's names first? We always say Mr. and Mrs., Mr. and Mrs., Mr. and Mrs. That's part of our culture. It was part of their culture to say the man's name first. Why did he say the woman's name first?
She had the primary role.
Right. She was the pastor in Rome. We wouldn't have allowed it now. We would have showed up right away and said, no, that's not of the Lord. We don't believe in women pastors. We would have kicked her right out. But he mentions her name first because she was in that culture, women thought they could do anything, and so they did. Now, they didn't do everything. They just thought they could do anything. So women, I'll start a church. I'll witness to somebody. No one told them they couldn't do that. So they did it. So Paul says, okay, read Priscilla and her helper Will. Larry, you have to cast it down. My fellow workers in Christ Jesus, go on.
Who risk their own necks for my life, to whom not only I give thanks, but also all the churches of the Gentiles.
Right, so they were movers and shakers. Go on.
Likewise, greet the church that is in their house.
So there's a church that's in their house. Oh, I wish my friend was here, because I would ask him to explain how Priscilla had to keep quiet in her own house. It's true that women aren't supposed to speak. The church is in their houses. She just had to mind and stuff all the time. Anyway, so that's a misreading of that scripture. Yes, the church was in Priscilla's house, so obviously she was able to speak. Go on.
Greet Mary, who labored much for us.
Another woman labored for, okay, go.
Greet
And Junia, another, so Junia is a woman. In some of your translations, they will change Junia's name to Junius to make him a man, because they are horrified at what Paul says next. Because Junia is a woman. Go on.
My countrymen, my fellow prisoners who are of note among the apostles.
Among the apostles. Junia was one of the apostles. What? How can a woman be one of the apostles? Ain't no woman apostle. Let me change her name to Junius. Let me correct the Bible, because God clearly made a mistake. So they're horrified that Paul says she's one of the apostles that are sent out, meaning missionaries. She wasn't one of the original 12. The original 12 men who traveled with Jesus had to eat and sleep with him. It would have been inappropriate for a woman to eat and sleep with men. No one would have paid any attention to her, because they thought, well, surely she's a prostitute. So it would have been inappropriate. But now that people were being sent out, the apostles are the sent out ones. So they're starting churches. If you're starting a church, if God sends you out to a region, you're an apostle. Today we call them missionaries, because you're starting churches. So apostles are church starters. Like Paul, he was an apostle. He went out and he started churches here, started churches there. So Junia, who also was a fellow countryman of Paul, meaning from the same place that Paul was, up in Syria, Tarsus in Syria, right? Today's Syria, that's where she was from. She was a fellow apostle. But the translators just could not handle that. It makes them crazy. So they just lie and change her name. Go on.
Also were in Christ before.
Oh my goodness. Julia was a Christian before Paul. So he's saying, say hi to all these people, Priscilla and Mary and Junia, because they're doing the great work. Because they are allowing God to use them, and they haven't been told that God can't use them. That's why Paul says there's no male and female, there's no Jew or Gentile. It doesn't matter what you are. There's no short and tall in Christ. You have to be careful. Christ only used tall people, or skinny people, or young people. He said that doesn't exist. God will use anybody who's willing to open their mouth and be used by him. He doesn't have, because it's him that's doing it through the vessel. So on purpose, he chooses the crazy things of the world to confound the wise. On purpose. He'll choose an old person or a young child on purpose, so that you know it's him. Because if we only choose 6'3" men in 3-piece suits, then we would worship that instead of worshiping God. We would limit it. So God makes sure that it comes in all forms, so that we know it's him, it's not the person. You can be eloquent, you could have gone to school for 50 years, or you can just know God. You don't have to study Hebrew and Latin like me. God can, it doesn't, you don't have to study, you just have to know the Spirit of God and be willing to open your mouth, that's all. And God will use you just equally as anybody else. Okay, so Acts chapter 28. So he's running to all these people, and I'm ending Acts 28, verse 16.
Now when we came to Rome, the centurion delivered the prisoners to the captain of the guard. But Paul was permitted to dwell by himself with the soldiers guarding him.
So when they finally got to Rome, Paul and the centurion, all these people who've been following Paul all over the place, they finally said, here, you guys know where we're supposed to go. Paul, you and that guard who you're chained to, you can stay at his house. Because clearly you have a ministry and we're not following you all over the place anymore. So Paul was allowed to stay. He had his own apartment. He had his own people coming in, but he was chained to this Roman prisoner. He could never let that prisoner go. And Paul uses that example as like the flesh. He says, you know, I'm like the chain to the flesh. The flesh is always going to be there trying to get you to do something wrong, trying to get you to doubt God. The flesh is like this, you know, like you're chained to it, but that doesn't mean you have to be subject to it. So Paul, even though I'm chained to this guard, I'm still ministering to people. I'm still helping Luke write the book of Acts. I'm still doing all this stuff, getting people saved. So just because you're chained to the flesh doesn't mean you have to really be guarded by it. But because Paul had just followed the Lord this whole time, he never complained when he was shipwrecked. He never complained when the snake grabbed him. They went, you're a true Christian. Because you're just praising God all the time, you get to have your own place. Because you've shown through your actions that you really trust that God's in control. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, not by our arguments, not by our fierceness, not by our passion, not by anything else, but how we love people and how we treat them. Because God is love, and if we allow His love to shine through us in every situation, your car breaks down, you just say, oh, praise the Lord, it's okay. We don't hit the steering wheel and kick the thing and curse. Lose our job, we say, praise the Lord, God's got another job for me. On the way out the door, we don't say, hey, everybody! Give the finger, and I am. We walk out the door and say, praise the Lord, I know God's got another job. We don't say, and this boss, we don't do none of that stuff because we're Christians. If we act right, people go, wow, look at how, you just found out that bad diagnosis and you should praise the Lord. You just found out that this happened and that happened. You just found out this person passed away and you said, well, praise the Lord, they're in God's hands now. You know, then you're not sad. But we don't sorrow and anger like other people. When they see that witness on us, then they know you're Christians. As opposed to a churchgoer who signed their name on a roll, but God's name is never written on their hearts. So when we do that, then we'll see results. I'm ending, yes, sir.
When I studied the life of Jesus, I see that he has compassion.
Really?
So if you are a Christian or Christ-like, and you study the life of Jesus,
right,
you are supposed to have compassion.
Yes, we are. So we have to start doing that. That'll happen someday, won't it? So it's easy to talk it, but it's better to live it. So the next time your truck breaks down, the next time your boss comes at you, do it. Don't explain it to us. Do it. Because God's going to give you opportunity. You shouldn't have said that out loud. God hurt you. So He's going to send somebody out to attack you.
That's all right.
And it won't be the devil. It will actually be God. To see if you're going to live what you just said to us. So it's better to act like you're stupid. Because you act like you know it, now you're responsible. Amen. Yes, sir?
That's okay, because if I'm studying the life of Jesus and I'm seeking God,
yes,
and He's telling me how to live,
okay,
then I am supposed to live that way. He's going to test me.
Okay, I can't wait. I can't wait. We'll talk over the next couple of weeks. We'll be talking. You're going to call me up on the phone. Oh, man. And I'll remind you what you said.
That's okay. Hey,
I know.
I'm a human. I'm a human being. I do get disturbed.
No. You're Christian. You're Christian. You just told us. Okay, we'll talk. I know everybody's listening. But then now let's live it. Let's live it as a church. As a church. Because there are people going to come in and who are not going to agree with this and going to say, oh, women shouldn't preach. And you can either cuss them out or you say, oh, God will show you. And just smile and walk on. So we're going to see. God loves to test us. Just know it's not the devil. Know that it's God testing your faith to see if you're really going to live up to what you're saying. Will you do it? Be you doers of the word. So will we do it? That's what we're going to find out. Let's bow our head.